with me to this indoor swap meet that was absolutely huge inside. The very first table that I found had a bunch of Guitar Hero guitars on it and a ton of games here. So I kind of looked through here for a while. And that is when I ended up finding a PlayStation 2 game that was definitely well worth it. And that is Way of the Samurai for the PlayStation 2. And I ended up grabbing that. Then I kept looking here and there, and I even saw this Splatoon amiibo, but I ultimately didn't end up picking that up. But I did grab this PlayStation 2 game, which was Way of the Samurai, and this is complete, and they wanted $10 for it. But I also saw that they had a bunch of Guitar Hero guitars. This was the best one out of the bunch. And I asked how much for this. She said 20, and then I offered 15, and she was happy and took that. So picking this up for 15 bucks was definitely well worth it. This game is worth that by itself. And then this is the PlayStation 3, I believe, controller. I can't remember if this one has to have a dongle or if it Bluetooths to the system, but it does have that neck that breaks away. So I ended up taking the neck off and shoving this into my backpack and walking around with it the whole day. But this was a great first stop, so let's continue on and see what else I found. Then I made my way to my buddy Nick's booth, which he is the one who puts on the nostalgia swap in my area. So if you're around here, go check that out. It's coming up soon. But the first thing I saw were these two Pokemon things. One was like a whistle and one was just to make noise. But I continued on where I kept looking through here. He had games for 30% off, which is definitely a steal. So, of course, you knew I had to dig through what he had here. There was some PSP games, some GameCube games, some Wii games back there, and I ended up kind of searching around for some stuff here. I did end up finding this Wii Sports Resort loose disc for 28 bucks, which we'll talk about how much I paid for everything when we get to it. This was a Mario Kart, but it was missing the disc, so that factors into the price there. Then I kind of went to this next bin where he had a bunch of PlayStation 1 games, some PS2 games, a few other games here and there. So I kind of just dug through there looking for stuff. I did end up finding something right here that was well worth it, and that was Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3. But it was missing the disc, unfortunately, as well. But that's fine. It was priced without the disc. That's perfectly fine there. Then I ended up finding Super Bust-A-Move 2 for 10 bucks for the PlayStation 2. Obviously, this is a pickup. I checked out more of this section over here where he had some action figures, some NES box games, which were really cool to see. He's got a ton of awesome box games. If you're in the area and you need some box games for the NES, Nick is definitely a good place to go to. And then I ended up spotting a bunch of little consoles here. I say little, I mean regular size consoles, but there was a ton of them here, as well as a few Sega CD games. And I got Sylphid, I think is how you pronounce it, complete in the box for 20 bucks, which is definitely well worth it. So I'm glad I stopped at Nick's booth because every time I do, he always has great deals and gives me a hookup as well. Like I said, Wii Sports Resort, this is just the disc. I think I might have a case back there for this, so I grabbed that. Then I got Sylphid, which looked like a fun, like, almost shooter that's kind of like Star Fox for the Sega CD. Then I got Super Bust-A-Move 2 right there, as well as just the cases here. I got Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 and Mario Kart Wii. Both of these are without the disc, but I ended up walking up to him and said, hey, what could you do on these? He did his math, and then he said, what about 30 bucks? So I got all of this for 30 bucks from Nick, which was totally awesome. And anytime I see him, I know he's going to hook me up, but if you're in the area, you got to check out his nostalgia swap. It's coming up soon, and it should be pretty good. But we got to keep going at this indoor swap meet, which brought me to this next booth where I found a Guitar Hero strap complete in the box. They wanted a little too much, as well as that Master System control. That was pretty cool, but nothing else here caught my eye that was well worth it. The last time I came here, these games were all here, so they're a little overpriced, I'll be honest with you. but sometimes I can find some cool stuff in their plushie section, like a Sonic, some random game stuff, Pokemon stuff, that pink Pac-Man, Donkey Kong. And so I kind of like to dig around here, and that is where I ended up finding Sonic, Tails, and then this Princess Peach from what I believe is the Wind Waker era. Yep, it is. And so I grabbed that, and there's a few more plushies there. Then I saw this mug here and thought about it, but I didn't really need another mug, so I left it behind, as well as this random necklace. But from this booth, all I ended up buying was this Princess Zelda. And if you flip it over and look at the tag here, it is from Wind Waker, from the Wind Waker HD from 2014. This is the Wii U version one. So I ended up picking this up for like $5, and I figured I'd love to add it to the shelf. You know how I am with plushies. So when I saw this, I had to grab it. That brought me to this next booth where I have been to this guy's booth probably 10 times, and he always has the same exact stuff. But this time there were a few games here on the table that he didn't have and hasn't had in a while, so that was kind of interesting to me and intriguing. I did find this Final Fantasy game for the PlayStation 2. I thought about grabbing it, and honestly I probably should have, but I ended up passing on it. But this next booth is where it got good. First off, I ended up buying this Mario plush for only $1. And then on another table, I saw a Game Boy Advance with Pokemon Crystal in it and a PlayStation Portal, which he wanted a little too much for. So I did end up grabbing the Mario plush here. This little thing was awesome. He said $1 for this, and I absolutely had to grab it. But then I saw this thing. I tested it. It looked like the save battery was dry on it, but I did get to play it a little bit, and it is what it is. I tried to see how much he wanted for it. This is worth like maybe $130, but he wanted $100 for it. I offered him 80, and then he countered at 90, and we made a deal. So I bought this Pokemon Crystal. I keep saying Crystal. This is Silver. I don't know why I kept saying that, but Pokemon Silver and a Game Boy Advance for $90 is definitely well worth it. Then while I was at this next booth, I ended up finding the Street Fighter cassette, which was pretty interesting to me. So I just wanted to check that out, but I got out of there pretty quickly and continued on. I saw this Minecraft shirt and saw a bundle of games underneath it, so I kind of checked it out, but there wasn't anything here that I wanted. And while I was at this booth, my buddy Nick came up to me and said, "Hey, have this, and it is a interesting thing." And so he gave it to me, but then I had to go back and I bought the other one to match while I was there. And then I saw a few little PlayStation portable games, PSP, but they're all from Japan, so there wasn't anything here I had to grab. So I just kind of looked it up and didn't end up actually getting anything. But then this next table, they wanted $160 for everything, but it was a little too high. So I grabbed Super Mario World and Street Fighter 2 Turbo and asked them how much they wanted for them. And they ended up selling these two to me for $25, which is definitely a crazy deal. But I want to say shout out to Nick again. I know we talked about him a little earlier. He brought this Mario one up to me and said, "It's yours," while I was walking around. But I walked back and bought this one from him. So we made a little bit of a deal there. I can't remember. I think he wanted to try to give both of them to me. I gave him $5 or $10, honestly. I'm thankful that he sent me these. These, or gave me these. These are just like little disc holders. You put a few in, and it's pretty interesting. But at the same time, this crazy deal was happening because Street Fighter 2 Turbo is worth a lot of money, and I got another copy of Super Mario World for $25 for both of these. Like, that's probably the most insane deal of the day. I can't believe that they went that low for those, and I'm not complaining, and they were happy, I was happy, so I got out of there and kept going. Then the final booth of this indoor swap meet was the owner of the Oklahoma Gaming Frenzy. If you're in the area, you got to check that out. It's also coming up soon, so if you are around, go check that out. But the first thing that I saw here while I was wandering was some Switch games, which I have both of these, so I ended up passing on them. but I did end up finding a complete in-box copy of Mario Party 7 for $55. And then I made my way around into this booth a little bit more because people had kind of cleared out. There was Nintendo 64 games here that I looked through. There was Super Nintendo games, even NES games. There was a bunch of awesome stuff here, and honestly, there wasn't anything here that I didn't have already. So I made my way to the Wii section where I kind of looked around that. Then the DS and the 3DS section. I probably should have picked up that game, but I didn't. Maybe next time. Some PS2 games. Here I was checking out Zathura. If anyone remembers when this came out, it was like a bad remake of Jumanji, and then for some reason they ported it to games, which was just incredibly ridiculous. I checked out the PS4 games, the Xbox One games, even the Xbox 360 games here. And I kind of kept looking and looking where I made my way to the Xbox original games. And I did end up finding something that was pretty interesting here, but not something that I would pick up ever. But I thought it was funny, so I figured I would show you. And that is this weird, like, yoga game for the Xbox original. But, anyways, I ended up making my way to check out, and that is when I ended up picking up 2 GameCube games here. He had Sonic Heroes behind the counter, and I said, how much would you do for this? And then he was like, hey, are you interested in this one? And so I said, yes. And he ended up doing $75 for both of these, which is definitely well worth it. And I'm glad to have picked these up for my GameCube collection. And also, if you're in the area, I know I said it already, but the Oklahoma Gaming Frenzy is coming up soon. So you don't want to miss it out. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'm going to be there. So check that out if you're in the area as well. But overall, I ended up finding some wild stuff at this indoor flea market, from games to a Game Boy Advance to a Guitar Hero guitar, which I'm thankful that came apart so I could put it in my backpack while I walked around. I think this ended up being a wild day with all these pickups. Comment down below and let me know what you think was the best pickup. I think for me, it might have been that Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but comment down below and let me know what you think is the best. But I think I'm going to get out of here because I got to test some of these games and play them, of course. So check out that video out if you haven't already. But honestly, this was a wild day at the indoor swap meet, and I think I might have to go again soon. But what do you think? Comment down below, let me know. But I'm getting out of here, so check out that video out if you haven't already.